All right.
Tim, man, I'm fired up that you actually understand what this boat is.
I am. This is a super, super cool boat.
Tell him. You can actually tell him.
This boat is an older boat, but it has a very small...
1966 correct craft.
It has a unique motor which has drawn me to it. It's like jewelry in the box. It's got a 427 side oiler with Home and Moody gadgets and goodies on it. This thing is just like, I want to hear this thing run. But we came here for a reason. We're doing some work on this thing.
Hold on. 550 horsepower.
550.
John Kazi built. Home and Moody dual floor, everything. ARP stainless 12 point. Every single water fastener is also 12 point stainless. Stainless hard lines running to every single hose that are zip tied. Okay, so got it.
All I can say is, ugh.
And just to make it, we've got 1-inch teak custom lattice ski deck like an old Chris Craft.
Yeah, that is very cool. Very, very cool.
And it's been sitting for like years. There's the sad part. Because we need to paint upholstery and sold it to a friend, but we're back. And this year, it's in the body shop. It is happening!
We're doing it now. We're doing it now.
We're gonna make this boat finished. And you're gonna show them.
Yes.
So this is like a real life thing. What we're gonna do is, Tim's gonna show me, okay, we've got a cracked out gel coat to the point to where the other day when we pulled this thing in, it was cold out. Actually, it was warm in the shop, and it came in here, it was cold. It was like
little heat adjustment. So we started sanding down the gel coat, and the gel coat looks, I mean, for the time that it was, pretty good. We're going to have to sand out all the cracks to make sure that we don't actually get down into the fiberglass, which so far is looking pretty good. But we did have one little area here that needs a little bit of loving. There's an area that a prior repair was made, and it looks like
some hack.
The resin's cracked. So it could be because there's a crack underneath of there that's continuing to propagate. We're going to sand into it and see what's going on. It may be a little resin rich, and that may be part of what was going on with it too. So we're going to go through some resin repair techniques, proper catalyzation, proper saturation, and then we're going to get this area ready for gel coat and put a layer of gel coat on this and get this thing ready to get in the water for you this year. So
yeah, I'm excited. Like once you can show me kind of locally how to do it, then we probably have this thing soda blasted. We'll do whatever you show us to do from here on out, and then of course at some point, you know, you can take these boats that are not going to be, you know, sitting in the water all the time and finish them out with a typical automotive paint at the end. But I do want to fully gel coat it just in case it's sitting over the week, you know, sitting there over a week. We rent a house, it's sitting out in the water, and I don't want to worry that a little pinhole is making it, you know,
absolutely,
soak up, so.
Absolutely, because gel coat is designed for that. Gel coat is a isothallic NPG. It's a long story, but it's an isothallic neopenyl glycol based polyester material that keeps the water from absorbing into it. So that's why boats are made with gel coat. They actually spray the gel coat into the mold, then put the fiberglass on top of that, so when it comes out it's nice and shiny, and it gives it structure, it's protection for it. So by putting a layer of the gel coat back onto it, we're going to make sure, to that point you said, we're not going to have to worry about it. If you've got any kind of cracking or anything going on with the gel coat and you want to make sure you really help to hold it down and stabilize it, or with the fiberglass, putting a layer of gel coat over top of it is going to be the best thing to do in terms of sealing it off from the environment and not having to worry about anything moving around up underneath it. No solvents come out, no solvents come back in, and it's just a really good solid platform to do the painting on.
I'm excited to use that. I've actually done a lot of fiberglass since I was a kid, but I've never used gel coat, so like this will be kind of cool. All right, well, what's our first step? We got it in 80 right now. Actually, we need to fix this crack.
Yeah, we need to sand a little bit farther and see what's actually going on here, because where the way the crack is going from here to here, let's sand it a little bit further and see what's underneath of there, to see if what's cracking is actually the layer that's on the top. One of the things you can do, if you take a fingernail tap, you can kind of listen, solid, solid. So there's either a hole there, or there's a delamination between those two layers of the resin and the gel coat, and that's what's causing it to crack. So we'll sand a little bit further and see what's actually going on with that.
Before you just did a tap test on it?
Tap test.
Booth, it cuts the lights. All right.
I'm gonna sand a little bit farther, actually grind a little bit deeper to where I can get that out. And then what we'll do is we'll lay up some glass. I'm gonna open up this area about this big. So when we do this repair, we'll layer it up in a reverse pyramid, or we'll do a scarf repair where scarf is you wet the whole thing and then you go smaller. A pyramid is you do the smaller and then you go bigger.
Yeah.
I like to do a scarf on a repair like this. So we'll sand the gel coat all the way back off of this.
Okay.
So we get fiberglass to fiberglass for the repair.
Okay.
And then we'll straighten that out and then put the gel coat over top of it. So
Figures.
I'm
Let me
trying
get
to
you a
figure
bigger
out
grinder.
why it cracked here and there, unless it's something to do.
I mean, I may have just,
the
when I
mold.
did it years ago, maybe I didn't do a good enough job. Like,
Well, if you didn't know that you had to take out the crack.
I mean, I would have tried, but at the end of the day, like, you know how it is on your own home project.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how good a job I did. No telling back then. Let me get you a 5-inch grinder.
Okay. So here's what we've got. We got into sanding on this, and this is where a lot of folks will get into a fiberglass repair and start to feel overwhelmed, and it's easy to do. As we're sanding into this, we're starting to see that there's a lighter area of the fiberglass to the darker area of fiberglass, and that tells us there's a delamination. It may have been a dry area that wasn't actually getting those two layers when they sprayed the chopper gun into it wet enough for them to fully incorporate and get a good bond. It could be a crack that's in there. So as we're sanding this, it's got to be a little bigger.
Just to make sure I'm getting this right. So these lighter areas that you're like here to here, you can see the obvious difference. This didn't have enough resin in it, and this one did.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And now, do you think, just out of curiosity, do you think in '66 would that have been a hand laid body?
Probably, it could have been a hand laid.
Or were they already chopping by that point?
They could, I don't know. It could have been a chopped situation at that point, but if they hand laid or chopped it up, if they didn't come back with the roller and get all of that, those layers rolled in together, that could have just been a little bit of a dry area. And since we got it on both sides, it may just be a defect in the way that the mold was made.
Sure.
But while we're in this far, we're going to go ahead and take out those lighter layers, and you'll tell because as you're sanding it, it's like a bad feather edge. It just wants to keep pulling back.
Gotcha.
On both of these. So we'll sand it back to where it's solid, and then we'll start doing a glass layup and get this back up. Because when you're doing a fiberglass repair, you can't do a proper repair until you get this solid fiberglass.
I got you.
And so that's what we're getting to now. So that's why we thought.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that you needed to make sure you weren't hitting some of this stuff.
And it's got to be a fiberglass to fiberglass repair. If it goes over the gel coat, it's not really getting a good bond.
Okay.
So that's why it's gotten a little bit bigger, but we're going to get it fixed.
It happens.
That's why we're here. Sounding good? Okay. So the damage is going to the very edge of this. So what we're going to do is we remove that inner plate. We're going to cut this out, and we're going to do a layup on the glass all the way over on both sides, and then start to create a fillet to make this even stronger. But I got to get this area out. kind of how things go for fiberglass repairs. The reason the crack was there is because back in the day, they didn't get the woven roving actually wet out enough. So what we did is we sanded down to where we got to the woven roving. We're gonna wet those layers and build it up and build this whole layer back up and wrap it over that edge to reinforce it. Second thing I might say to do is maybe we'll make a gusset up inside of here, but we want at least to start to get this repair that we're getting it re-glassed back up and re-wetted back up. So when I counted out the number of ounces we had in here, we counted out the number of drops. You want to put in 12 ounces, 12 drops per every ounce. And then when we mixed it up, you want to scrape the sides really good, scrape the bottom, make sure it's been fully incorporated. And then before we start laying it up, what we want to do is actually just take the resin and wet the layers out. We want to wet this out really good and then layer our cloth on top of it. We're using a laminating resin. See, there's more dry up underneath there. And this is going to stay sticky when it dries. So the benefit for that is we don't have to worry about sanding it in between coats. We can just keep building and building and building.
What kind of resin is there out there where you have to sand in between?
There's a what you call finishing resin or a waxed resin, or 498 resin is a finishing resin or a waxed resin. And then there's this one, that's the laminating resin. So I'll take
big or small?
The biggest piece first. So we're gonna put the biggest piece down first, and then we're gonna build up with, I'll let you hold on to that. Then we're gonna go up to the smaller layers, and that would be called a scarf repair. So I'm gonna put this on.
I don't really need this stick anymore, right?
Nah.
Almost hit my jacket.
All right, so then we're just gonna take a little bit of resin. We don't wanna oversaturate. We just wanna wet the fibers out. That's all we're looking to do. Once we get to where it's looking like that, that's perfect.
See, I like totally soaked the
Eyes
out of it.
Well, the thing about that is when you oversaturate, it actually makes it weaker, makes it more brittle. We want the fiberglass to actually be carrying the brunt of the repair itself. So we just want to wet it out.
And why would oversaturating it, putting more resin in, matter?
Makes it brittle.
But why?
Because you're overbalancing the resin to reinforcement ratio. If you have the right amount of resin, just enough, you can see right there, you can actually see the fibers, that is a good amount. If you oversaturate it, you put too much resin into it, so the extra resin has no place to go and it becomes brittle.
So like in between the layers, because there's no glass, there's no strength of the fiberglass, in between those layers is becoming brittle.
Correct.
Even though you have the strength of the fiberglass next to it.
If it's not got enough resin into it, that's where it starts to become the brittle side of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Tell you what, hand me those scissors, and we're going to make a relief cut right here.
That is a technical term, kids. Skizzers.
No running with them. Wet this over.
I'm gonna try not to oversaturate for a change. Just enough, kids. Just enough to make it not white.
Yep.
Not light and white. Saturated, but not oversaturated. Now, what about resin? Like, you know, what's your percentage of over? Like, if it's cold, I'm assuming you can put a little extra in and not worry about it.
Oh, that's a good question. We've got on our cans a ratio for some of the products as far as how much resin to put into it depending on the temperature. You don't want to go too far beyond that amount. So if it's a cold day, you really don't want to try to be working with fiberglass. And here it's warm. We're actually under the heater. But if we were working in an area where it was a little cooler and we started using too much hardener into it, then what happens is it post cures and it's brittle because it's got too much hardener into it.
So like, so you're just gonna say for this, try to keep it as close to the stated amount as
Correct.
possible and work within, you know, I know most of these chemicals that you buy, no matter what it is, are rated for 70 degrees. That's how it typically
Yeah, everything we've got on our products is rated between 70 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. There we go.
Going against my grain here. I am not oversaturating. I'm just doing enough. I'm not gonna overdo it. I'm like, come on, pour it on there.
Don't want to do that.
I know. I'm changing my ways. Dang it.
A couple layers.
It's like anything. The more you learn about this stuff, then the more you you become like crazy, because every time, the more you learn. That's why, luckily, you don't want to learn too much. You just want to read the instructions and do what's told.
You know, and
once you know too much, then you won't never get anything done, because you're like, I'm not trying it. It's got to be so perfect that I'll totally screw it up. Well, that's not any fun. Then you didn't do anything.
Yeah, getting it, learning as you go, reading the technical data sheets on the products. That is where you get the information. So we'll put a smaller layer in here.
And like, you don't get the satisfaction of having Tim cut out your work that you did 10 years ago, and it cracked again. Even though it wasn't all my fault. There was some
not
factory.
Your fault. This was not
There
your
were some
fault.
factory issues in there, and the thing did sit outside a lot.
And that
both
may
heat and winter.
That may have just done it because it was just not properly wet from the beginning.
True. And you know, this boat, this Jim in Nashville area, he raised 3 girls. I believe I got that right. 3 girls on this boat. They all learned to ski on this boat. I mean, they used this boat for like 30 years. I mean, a long time before I got it. And so, you know, this thing had been beat up. Now, what he said, and I have no idea if this is true or not, but he said back then they put more fiberglass in these boats because they weren't sure how much to use, because it was just the beginning of fiberglass technology in 1966.
And you know what? He may very well be right about that.
I mean, it's solid. Like when it hits, you know. I mean, I think we'd want to do a.
Yep, we're going to do another layer there. And I got some more layers there, but kind of build in where we removed so much fiberglass. And this is where a lot of folks get into working with fiberglass, and they think, well, I'll just sand out that little spot. Well, we see where we ended up sanding out that little spot. It got a lot bigger.
I would like to go back to a radius corner if possible, so hopefully.
I would say we'll take a piece of wood and bond the wood in there, and then glass over top of that. So now you got glass inside and outside.
Did you just use wood on my boat?
Yep.
You know I'm a metal shaper, right? Even though I'm here doing a fiberglass video.
We all have to evolve, dude. We all have to evolve.
I started with glass before I knew how to do metalwork, so I'm actually getting back to my roots. My first customizing, I didn't know how to do it, so I would fiberglass everything in because I didn't know how to weld.
I remember watching a guy doing some repairs and putting in a patch, and I was too young to know better, and he would pop rivet in the patch, and then he would put fiberglass over top of that, and when it would come back in the shop after it'd been out in the field for a while, well, why is it cracked? Well, knowing what I know now, I'm like, well, everything was moving underneath it.
Yeah.
So those rivets just didn't allow anything to really set in place.
Yep.
All right, we're getting there. So let's take our last layer. Let's go
want
ahead
the
and
big
make
one?
the relief cut in that, and it's going to be the one over top. Thanks, sir.
Wood. I believe you're about to put wood in my boat. Even though I have quite a bit of wood in my boat.
Wood and glass, man. Wood and glass.
Wood and glass, all right.
All right. Let's put our last layer on here.
Now, is there like you have any just general, obviously, it's always like case dependent, but I mean, you have any, typically I put 3 layers on, or, you know, anything like that you kind of, I know, again, it can go all over the place, but
I say measure the layers. Measure the thickness. You need to know how thick it was in order to create a proper bevel. So
you're trying to go back to original thickness.
yes. So I'm trying to get this back to the
Gotcha.
original thickness and not beyond the original thickness.
Gotcha.
Because it's like when you have a piece of metal that cracks and you weld it really good. Where's the next point the crack goes?
Next to
Right next to the
next
weld.
to it, sure. weld affected zone.
Yes.
Is what we call it.
So that's kind of what would happen with fiberglass.
Okay.
If you made an area of fiberglass that's too thick, that it actually, if it's thicker than what the rest of it is, it will actually cause it to crack right next to it.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
that's true.
since
Because it can't flex.
Correct. So then that's the most brittle point is right next to it.
We got to make sure we get over the corner here because these folks are watching on a corner we can't see right now. And they're like, they didn't even get the white out right there. They didn't get their bubbles out.
What's wrong with those guys?
They just told us what to do. They didn't do it. It's always funny to me how many people are like, you know, afraid to do videos. Like, but what if we get negative comments? You know, but that's why I love this combination of, you know, you work with the factory, you know, like how the products are made, you know how the scientists have like studied them in the lab and, you know, looked at it over time and done field tests. And when was Evercoat founded?
Evercoat was founded in 1953.
So they've been working on it since '53. So, you know, they got a couple of books, I'm sure, with things to do, things not to do.
They know a thing or two.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's fun to have knowledge.
And to continue to grow.
One
that
more or no?
knowledge. I think we're good. Let's put that last layer. Let's put that layer right there in that corner where we have a low spot, and we'll take a look at it tomorrow. We may need to put a little bit more onto it for tomorrow. We'll see, but at least this is a good starting base.
Yeah.
Since this is the laminating resin, we don't need to sand between layers.
And how long is that window open?
Since it's not waxed on the top, we don't have to sand it off. So tomorrow, when we come back in here, even after 12 hours, we'd still be able to put another layer directly over top of it.
That's cool.
So
All right.
build that lip up
See,
around here and
like-
reinforce it really good.
Now that I know not to oversaturate, I want to just look at all that left. I want to just pour it on there and
Don't
Darn
recommend
it.
it.
Darn it.
There's the flood coat that we don't recommend. So we're just going
Well, I'm interested tomorrow. We're going to cut the video, let this thing go overnight. So you'll see us in different clothes. We'll be clean. We'll be
Less
showered
dusty.
for about that long. And, you know, I'm anxious to see now we can grind the gel coat down and then show me like, okay, we're going to use either, I don't know, marine filler or normal filler. Then we're going to use a gel coat or vice versa in order to kind of build our way up.
Try to minimize the amount of filler I put onto this. I want to leave as much glass in this as possible. The more glass I have, if there's a small amount we just need to smooth out for, you know, a fillet in the
Sure.
edge of the repair,
Sure.
we'll do some filler work for that.
Sure.
But if we have to start doing any building, we're going to put up some more layers of glass and mat onto it, again, to make sure we have maximum strength. And then we'll put our gel coat over top of it. So we'll just maybe smooth it out a little bit and put the gel coat over top of it and kind of blend into the rest.
Okay.
And since you're going to be painting, we're not going to worry about having to match the color of the gel coat.
Right, no.
So we're just going to be using the gel coat to seal off this repair.
Yeah.
Make sure it's going to be safe for any kind of moisture, whether it's going to be outside or it's going to be in the water. And it's going to be a very good solid repair for a long, long time. And
Now
Get it
I have
back
to
in
cut
the
the
water.
other one out.
yeah, you could do that. I showed you this.
Well, we'll do it later. I mean, there's a whole boat to do. So yeah, I got a lot to do. So do I.
All right. And that's it for tonight.
Hey everybody, Bryan Fuller here. I'm here with Tim. Tim is the man at training.evercoat.com, giving you all the knowledge, the ins and outs, the chemistry, how all of the products work. And he told me, hey, let's send some people to the website and make sure they're going to learn. But then he told me that the videos that we're making today aren't even going to make it. Now that's just not very nice. I'm promoting your site where we're going to learn, and I'm all excited about it. And you're like, okay, cool. So the videos we're doing today are going to make it? No, Bryan.
Well,
your videos won't make it.
It's because there's a lot of things you put into it.
Anyway, guys, go to the site. I've been there. It's really good. Tim does a great job. And maybe if enough of you go and request the Fuller Tim videos that I think were good that we were doing the last couple of days, should make it.
We can always add more.
Reconsider.
Make it the whole package.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.